Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Let us know if we're live. Let us know if I'm live. Going to do a call-in stream, so going to drop a link in a couple seconds and let people join. I'm going to max out at 5 minutes, but I need to be live to do that. So let me know if we're live. Are we live? Let us know if we're live. Let us know. Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? We're live. Chase, Yeti Man, Hector. We're live. Justin farted in the hot tub. What's going on? How's everybody doing? It's been a while since we've done one of these. We never really have done them a lot, but we're gonna let people in, talk with us. So what I want to do is go 45 to 50 minutes and put a 5 minute max at it, right? Because it's not gonna be like radio where you take your call and you hang up and talk, have a little bit of a conversation. But if we've done these before, and it's like the same person almost 20 minutes, which isn't bad, but it doesn't let anybody else get a chance with it. But wanted to do some live streaming as the season starts to wind down, as we cared less and less about the actual game on Sunday and more about the actual the team as a whole. So I'm going to drop the link in here. So I'm going to put the link now in the comments, and we'll go one by one. Hope everybody's doing now. So I'm putting that link out there and now. Make sure to subscribe. But let us know. Let us know if you want to join in. So if you join in, we will just bring in one by one. So hope everybody's having a good night. I don't want to do. We're gonna do some big. I don't want anyone to come in here and just ask me what I want to fire Joe Schoen, because I'm actually working on a video on why I think the Giants should or shouldn't fire Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. You know who I'd like to talk to tonight, right? Because this is the take I probably get the most flack for, and I'm the most passionate about it. I want to talk with someone who thinks the Giants should not bring back Darius Slayton, and strongly thinks they shouldn't bring back Darius Slayton. Like, I think if I want to be able to persuade you, I feel like I'm going to need to give you a lot of evidence, a lot of reasoning why. So we'll let people go in. I'd like you guys to have your faces showing. If not, it's okay, but it's just better for the aesthetic of YouTube. If it's it's not like I'm trying to look at you or nothing, but we'll get into it all. So all right, so we're gonna bring some. We got a couple people backstage. If you're in and you're like, I want to join, but I want to get the other part of the show. If you join that link, you'll be in the backstage and you'll be able to watch the show, and then I'll just pull you on one by one. So we're gonna first bring on Beppies. What's going on, big dog?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. Haven't done one of these in a while. Is it Beppies or
Yeah, Baptist.
Baptist? All right. What do you got?
I just
It
wanted.
could be I
didn't have anything prepared. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I didn't prepare anybody or anything. But it could be just like, hey, this is my opinion. What do you think about it? Asking me a question. Blah blah blah. What do you you got?
Yeah, so I'll give my opinion. So I've just been thinking about the state of between the general manager and the coach the past month, and seeing everybody's opinions about who should stay, who should go, should the general manager go, should the coach go with them, should one go, should one not, and I keep going back and forth with it, and I just think we need to go. I think we need to move on. I think we need a fresh start, and I know it's the third time that we've been saying that and going through it, but that's the point we've gotten to.
I hate just we got to do something new. We got to do something new, right? Like, I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather have continuity. I'd rather err on the side of some patience and continuity. But I just feel like right now, the only good argument, the best argument for Schoen and Daboll is continuity, right?
Exactly. What are we grabbing at anymore?
And we could have some conversations about Daboll as a whole. But I think when it comes to Joe Schoen, which I think Daboll can be a casualty of war sometimes with Joe Schoen, is that it's like, man, really, you're not selling me on much besides the fact that we can't keep starting over and ending the cycle. And we gave them it's not about 3 years you don't have a winner. It's all right. We're at 3 years. We don't feel good about your first 2 years. I know this last draft class feels all right, but that even if this draft class was good, which I think at this point, I think right now that's not enough of a reason. How have you done in free agency, right? Now that Bobby Okereke is not playing well, what free agents have we, are do we feel great about? John Runyon, I think, has been a solid signing, but he's not a great player. You've had some minimum guys like Greg Van Roten come in and do their job, but guys that aren't really. I think those are guys that are helping you not totally bottom out, which they have bottomed out. Compare keeping signing Greg Van Roten's a good signing because you don't have to play Marcus McKeithen. It's not because Greg Van Roten's this great player, and I think it's. I do lean on that side. Like I said, I'm going to make a video in the next 2 weeks, like really fleshing out why I believe they should or shouldn't go. But that's where I'm kind of at too. So it's like, man, it's like I can't muster up this great argument on why these guys should stay.
Right.
Besides, if they get the quarterback right, it'll fix a lot of issues. But you can make that argument for anybody. So it's like, all right, but why do you deserve to take get that quarterback pick right?
Yeah, and that's the argument. Do we want them taking the pick? You know.
Yeah, and listen, I actually think the best argument is like, even though they re-signed Daniel Jones, it would be kind of tough to let a regime go without them ever drafting a quarterback. Like that's whenever you get a regime, unless you're joining a team with an established franchise quarterback, the assumption is they're going to be able to draft a quarterback. And even though they did re-sign Daniel Jones, they did structure it in a way where you could tell they didn't fully believe in him. They kind of looked at him as like a, rebuild, while competing. But
And after watching the Hard Knocks too, like I give them the benefit of the doubt of wanting to trade up for the quarterback and making the move and knowing they needed to make the move, but then it goes back to why'd you sign the guy to 40 million if you knew it wasn't it?
Right. You got anything else before we get to the next guy?
Nah, I'm all set. Get some more guys in.
Appreciate you, big dog.
Thanks, man.
All right, now we got a guy who we've actually featured on the show a lot with mailbag questions. We got Mike Muffmaster. What's going on, Mike?
Yo, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good. You ask good questions. We get like 100 questions every week, and I'm like, we keep on using these guys' questions, and it's not simply because of your Twitter handle. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How are you? I mean, it was the Twitter handle. I thought it was holding me back for a while, honestly. I thought I was getting skipped because my handle. I was like, damn, I'm getting discriminated against.
Now, unless it's like blatantly.
I did when it first happened. The first time you guys did it, like read my question, bro, I laughed my ass off on the way to work.
unless their Twitter handle is literally something we're not allowed to say, we don't let that play in. But what do you got?
I don't know, man. I was just sitting here. I'm like trying to think about what do I think is the fastest way to not lose 10 games for this team. There's no easy answer, and I think it's hard to kind of talk about whether you should keep the head coach or the general manager. I don't think it's an easy yes or no answer on that. But I mean, kind of to the last guy's point, are you going to let them spend? Like, if we do end up with a top 3 pick, that's a good way to attract someone new. Like, hey, we got this top pick for you to use. So I don't know. I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on what's the fastest way to not lose 10 games.
The fastest way is to get quarterback right. That's the easiest way. That's also the hardest thing to do in the NFL. So it's a double-sided coin where it's like, oh, if you get a quarterback, it helps a lot of different things, Like you feel better about Wan'Dale Robinson if they get their quarterback right. They're like, so it sounds good, but it's also like, what the hardest thing to do in NFL as a front office is to get the quarterback right. And that's where let's say that this season, let's say if somehow they won 2 of those games early on, and beat the Panthers, which is very doable, right? And they're looking at the 7th pick, and they're just not in a position to draft a quarterback in this draft. I actually would be more likely to give them another year because I think they wouldn't be in a situation where they can just panic pick a quarterback. And I've watched Cam Ward lightly. I think they might like Shedeur Sanders quite a bit. And it's not that I'm because again, I have to wait till the offseason, and I take this serious enough to where it's like I got to really watch the film before I give you my flat out opinions on the quarterbacks. My worry is that no matter what their opinions on they are of the quarterbacks, they're taking one. So that's where it's like if you had a fresh GM, well, guess what? If he doesn't like these quarterbacks, he can do what Ryan Poles did 2 years ago and trade down. Now you look at that, and Ryan Poles missed on C.J. Stroud. Would that be better? Well, it depends on how good Caleb Williams ends up being. So that's the way I look at it. Is I don't want them in a situation to panic pick, right? Like if they pick Shedeur Sanders, right, or a new GM picks Shedeur Sanders, I'm feeling much better about the new GM picking it because I know that new GM's picking it because like he thinks this is the best way to go,
Because I think
and
he's
not
gonna
just
get
the way
fired.
to save himself a job.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of where I'm at. Where like if they have the 7th pick, I'd actually be a lot more patient with giving them a 4th year because it's like I don't know if they're in a situation to.
I think they kind of know that too. I think that coaches realize that, like, hey man, if I end up with that number 1 pick, it might not actually be my number 1 pick.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Now, like you said, like, and I want to feel better just because of like, oh, they beat the Panthers and they dressed the kicker versus the Commanders week 2. Like, would I feel better about the team as a whole? Absolutely not. I still have the exact same thoughts about the roster. But I really think they're in I think they've already decided they're taking a quarterback no matter what.
And you only really hear, well, at least I only really hear about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I mean, how many options do they really even have in the draft? And it's like, do you like the free agent options better? You know, like Justin Fields and things like that.
Right. Yeah, and I could see even bringing Justin Fields in anyways because, hold on, I got the wrong thing here. I was trying to post the invite link. Because even if you draft a quarterback, you'd like to have a vet, and I think he's the perfect one. They're not very good, but the right offensive mind can make him look halfway decent because of his arm and his legs are good. You got anything else?
No, man, I'm good. Thanks for taking me.
Appreciate you, man. All right, got I just put the link in the chat. I think some other people are asking. I'm not really looking at the chat a ton right now. And I think I'll finish off probably just doing some chat questions. So say some of that. But next we got Levi. What's going on, man? You got me?
What's up, bro?
How you doing?
Yeah. I'm good. So, hold on.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
you kind of got a little bit of a tough connection. If
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
yeah, I'll give you a few more seconds. It's really choppy. You got me?
Is it good now? Yeah.
Yeah. Go with whatever you got. Hit me.
Okay. So, the thing that I was thinking, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you with Joe Shane drafting for need. If we got rid of him, that would be my most reason that I would be happy because I hate GMs that draft for need all the time. But I found myself conflicted because like I'm one of the people that want a QB, but honestly,
We all
even
want
if
a
it was,
quarterback.
yeah,
You know,
I mean,
like last year. So this is where I'm at with the quarterback thing. Is last year's draft class, I wanted to trade up. I really wanted to trade up. Like
right.
on draft day, when those rumors were starting to circulate and people were telling us about like the Patriots thinking about it, we were
Right.
getting excited.
Yeah, I remember.
What I wasn't
Yeah.
excited for is if they just drafted J.J. McCarthy at 6. So
Right, exactly.
But here's my worry. Even if you were someone who thought they should take J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix at 6, right? And that was your opinion, that was
Right,
your
which I
evaluation.
wasn't.
That's fine. But Joe
Right.
Shane's opinion was that it wasn't. So
Right.
the question is, if J.J. McCarthy was in this draft now, would he do it this year? And I think the answer would be yes. And that's
I
kind
think
of the
he
worry.
would. Yes.
You know, so that's kind of
Exactly.
my worry with it. It's not about like, oh, what if they get the quarterback wrong? You get quarterbacks wrong. You have to take a chance at some point. I hate having
Right.
a GM that is in job survival mode. I don't think you can be
Right.
that good at your job when you are in job survival mode versus just doing what
Because
you
it's
think's
not good
best
for the
team.
organization. It's just good for him to keep the job.
And
But
we
the thing
look
is,
at, and not just the draft, right? Free agency, right? The Giants have a good
Right.
amount of money in this free agency. They don't have the Patriots money where they have
Yeah.
130 million. So is he going to go out and back
Right.
a bunch of deals and pay premiums to go and get teams because he knows that they need to win no matter what, regardless of the quarterback next year?
Right.
So I think those are the situations that people are overlooking when it's like, just let him get a quarterback. Just let him get a quarterback. It's like,
Right.
this is where my draft day speech last year came from, where it's like, prove to me why you're the GM that deserves to draft a quarterback, not just simply, well, if you hit the quarterback, it looks good. Because if any GM hits if they hit the quarterback, say they picked a quarterback their first or second year and it was good, we'd be overlooking a lot of the bad decisions they made because you get the quarterback right.
Right.
But when you have neither, you don't have the quarterback or all the good decisions, that's when I get worried for you.
Right. I had one more quick question. So when on the way too early draft episode, when you picked Cam Ward, was that you thinking that's what Joe Shane is going to do, or is that what you would have done?
That's what I would have done. Now I have to give myself again. I told the last guy like I take myself way too seriously, where it's like I got a really deep dive. But like I watch
Right.
broadcast film, the condensed games. In fact, Authentic, who has a YouTube channel, clipped up like all his throws in a handful of games, and I'm like, this is somebody
Right.
that I would have taken in last year's draft at 6 overall. Now
Okay.
I gotta really watch him and not just again casually watch him. But whenever I
Right.
do mock drafts, I do it as what I would do. I feel like it's kind
So
of
you
boring to do predictive ones.
so you like you like his playmaking ability more than JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, that's like, yeah. There's a lot. I won't go into like revisiting why I don't love JJ, but like I think
Right.
he's got a good arm, not a great arm, similar to JJ. Now JJ threw the ball
Right.
harder, but I don't think JJ had a great arm down the field. Um,
Right.
but I think I like he has better overall accuracy down the field. I think he's more aggressive
hmm
down the field, and he's got that playmaking
Right.
more of a playmaker in the pocket than JJ was, even though JJ is a better runner than him.
I'm just worried because he has a lot of time back there.
That's the
Like
worry.
he
You never.
dances around a lot.
There's times where it's like he looks, it looks almost too confident. By the way, people in the chat that are trying to join, we have a
Yeah.
full backstage.
Okay.
This isn't for you. This is, but just if you're trying to join, it's not working. That's why I'm not talking, not with you, but with all the people backstage. But anything else before I go hit the next guy?
No, man. Much respect to y'all.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, bro.
All right, next we got on my guy. Hold on, let me try. I'm trying to do this right now. So I was trying to enter, but the studio is full. Okay. Nope, I'm not going to do that. I got to remove Levi. Thank you, Levi, for joining. All right, now we got on Liam Sheehan. What's going on, dude?
What's up? How we doing?
Good.
Doing all right. Sorry, my wall's a little blank here because I had this like frame of MetLife Stadium on there, but I had to take it down because
I saw you messing with it in the background.
yeah, I was trying to figure out if I could like break it.
I thought you were trying to get my attention or something with it.
I was trying to figure out if I could break it and maybe throw it out the window of my college dorm. Now, what do you serious but not serious question? What would you sign Jameis Winston just for vibe's sake? I feel like it'd be so fun.
We were talking with Chris Rose on this on Football Today because he's a Browns fan. And this is one of those things that I'm not gonna like tweet about, like, but it does annoy me a little bit. Is like, oh, Jameis Winston, at least he'd be fun. I was like, I think he's fun for 31 other fan bases. I think when he's on your team, it's pretty fucking frustrating to watch him throw pick sixes twice in a game and make dumb like it is like fun in a sense where it's like, yeah, big plays, right? That's fun. But like if you're just actually looking for good quarterbacking and winning, I don't think it's fun at all. A tanking team, yeah, it'd be a little more fun than, Drew Lock. But starting the season and you're, trying to get to 1-2 because you started 0-2 and he throws a pick six, I don't think it's as fun. But I do view Jameis as a better quarterback than Drew Lock, right? Like, I hate to go back and do revisionist history because you know me, I'm not someone who obsesses over getting the right backup, even though I know front offices value it because it has to do with job security. But the one quarterback that went after Drew Lock, and I was like, they gave Drew Lock more money than Jameis Winston. That was the only one where I was like, oh man, I'd rather do that than what they ended up doing. Maybe you could talk about Justin Fields, but I don't know how good I feel about like giving up draft capital for a quarterback who at the end of the day, I don't think is that good. But I would rather have Jameis Winston than Drew Lock.
Yeah, at least you guys would get like some all-time quotes. Like you guys would eat that up like on socials like every time.
Yeah, so there'd be fun parts. Yeah, but I feel like after that Broncos game, I don't think Browns fans are like, oh boy, I love this guy. And they're probably like, these quotes are fucking annoying. Like I'm just like, stop being like, what shit's not funny right now? Like we're falling apart. This shit is not funny to me. So 31 other fan bases, he's the most fun quarterback in the NFL. If he's on your team, probably not as much. And I've got a lot of Bucs fans who are now he's definitely ramped up and like kind of playing into a character a little bit. But like I have some friends who are Bucs fans who are like, it wasn't fun throwing 30 interceptions in a year. That wasn't fun for us at all. But
So on a more serious note, then I guess, because I know you guys talk a lot about how I think you'd say that you think that Dable has done a better job than Shane. And I would definitely agree that they're a package deal. They should be. They came in together. That was like the whole thing, that if they come in together, they should go out together and we not have to do the whole thing over again. So my question would be, do you look at Brian Dable and see a head coach? Because like I feel like, I know like we talk about how we like him as maybe not a play caller, but his offense, and we like the way he does things on offense. But at the end of the day, we're still the 32nd ranked offense. And I know it's a big personnel issue.
Yeah.
I do. But I do feel like that you can replace an offensive coordinator. But one of the hardest thing to do in the NFL is find a coach that can be a leader of men. And the other thing is, I just don't think we're a very disciplined team. I think we saw it in the lack of him disciplining players like Deonte Banks.
And that stuff has come back to bite him, right? Where you don't have a player who becomes like this total malcontent because of the lack of discipline. What you do is you have a lack of detail within your week preparation. And that's something that I know for a fact, is that like it's maybe it's a end of regular season this year type thing, but like there is a lack of attention to detail in their practices. That's a fact. We saw, and we even, you've been to training camp practices with us. You saw it last year, right? It's like, this is not a detail, but this is a very laissez-faire training camp. And they came out and got smacked 40-0. I don't think that's the reason why. I think they overestimated what they were. Daniel Jones, under that pressure, in that pass rush, melted. But, yeah, I don't think he is. And I think there's players that are there and in the past who don't think he's that leader of men yet either. Now, that being said, do I think Brian Dable can't be a good head coach? I do think he can be. I've seen him do it in 2022, but I just think some of the head coaching stuff that we overlook sometimes has been an issue, right? When you look back at the Wink stuff, I blame Wink a lot for that, but also know who you're hiring, right? Like, get on the same page with some of that stuff. And here's another word that hasn't been brought up. Mike Kafka leaves this offseason. Are you just forced to promote Shea Tierney to OC because no one's going to want to join this place? Like, that's a shitty place to be, So that's a worry I have too.
Yeah, and I think it's just like, and that's kind of also though what bothers me about having to go through another head coaching cycle is like, there's no job security here. There hasn't been since Tom Coughlin. Like, who would? Like, I don't think we'd get Ben Johnson. I mean,
I don't think we get Ben Johnson, but I think Ben Johnson is the one actual picky coordinator. I think if you got rid of Shane and Dable, I think you'd be able to get everyone but Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I'd agree. The landing at that point, it would become, there's still the New York Giants. There's still,
but yeah. If you get rid of Dable and keep Shane, then you become much less likely to get someone that's like, all right, I don't want to join a hot seat GM.
That would be the worst.
Yeah.
Stop being a fan.
And I think most people are on board with that. It's like, hey, if they keep him, I'm not happy. Or if they fire them, I'm not happy. The only thing that is fucking unacceptable is keeping one and getting rid of the other.
Absolutely.
But all right, Liam, I appreciate you. I'm sure we'll pick up soon.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on.
See you, Liam. All right, let me do this. All right, so I'm gonna bring on Vince. You're up next. I'm going to do something first. Bobby, won't you? The people are saying, Bobby. Hey, Bobby, why don't you do this? Why don't you read an ad, Bobby? Grab your favorite team's jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football and get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you use code WORLD. I need to get a globe to use the code WORLD because it really hammers it in. Stay in on the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in all the fun with the DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code WORLD. Got to buy that globe. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code WORLD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You'll be glad you did. All right, gonna welcome on the Cheez-It Man. The one good thing about Miami not making the college football playoff is that they might actually get to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is 1 hour away from me, and I get to go watch Miami play. I doubt Cam Ward will play in that one though, but still, I'd rather watch that than some bum ass ACC team. All right, Vince, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going?
I like the shirt, Chevrolet. Even though I'm kind of a Ford guy with the Wood Brothers, but I like the Chevrolet shirt. What's going on, dude?
It's going pretty well. So, all right, my prepared Giants question is going to be, are you feeling any buyer's remorse with Devin Singletary? Because I feel like between the fumbles and Tyrone Tracy taking over, I feel like it's kind of just been like he's just not there.
No, because the contract is not very much, and like it's good to have a second back. And I think Devin Singletary, Tracy's been better. I view that as a good thing. You know, like we didn't know Tracy was a 5th round pick who only played 1 year running back. I think Tracy being better. If you told me, hey, Tracy ends up being better, that's one of our best problems of the year. You know, you didn't invest a ton of money in him. The fumbles, yeah, that sucks, but he's also capable back. I think he's averaging 4 yards a pop, which is, what I, look for when you don't have this great offensive line, which is like better than what Saquon was averaging for them last year. He's had some good games and some games where, he's been quiet because of Tracy, but maybe you look back on it. But my thing is like, there's that I don't look at that money and say, I wish we would have done something else with it. And that's like the only trying to think of what other, like, we didn't really let anybody walk within that contract range, right? Like no depth piece or anything. Yeah, I don't. But
yeah,
it's a good question.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing too, because it's like I actually work for PFF, so
what's going on? Okay.
So yeah, so like I'm kind of in the sort of like running back.
What do you do for them?
What happened?
What do you do for them?
I like do like base data for college football games.
What does that entail?
It's basically just like copying like the game book stuff and like yards and drop back types and stuff like that. Yeah.
I didn't know if like you were like, all right, measuring yards after contact or something like that.
Yes, I do put that in.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of on the like running backs are kind of like a little bit not great, not super valuable sort of train, but I like one of the things that like I didn't expect is when we lost Saquon is like, dude, he just never fumbled. And like now it's just so jarring to have like those fumbles like almost every week.
Yeah, and I would actually like to look around the league and see how much they're back, because I know Saquon never fumbled. He's one of the best in the NFL at that. Like Saquon fumbled so little that like you could probably recall every one of his fumbles. There's like the Packers game last year, the Cowboys week 1, 2019, and there's a couple more in there. I'd be interested to see if other teams' running backs fumble or if it is a Tyrone Tracy or Devin Singletary thing. Because if you look at the way, like, even though an interception is to me a worse football play than a fumble, it probably hurts you more because you're not, I guess if you're losing it down the field, but usually you're losing in the backfield or at even, where interceptions can be down the field at times. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see like how many, like, or like EPA lost due to running back fumbles and not QB fumbles. That'd be an interesting thing to look at. In fact, I might write that down and like look at. Actually, I can't do that. Maybe you can do that. Tweet at me and then I'll retweet it. But what do you have like a specific college you do the stuff for, or just in general?
No, it's sort of just like it's like I'm a contractor, like technically, so I can just like sign up for whatever like time slots and then they'll just give me games.
Okay, cool. What's the most recent game you did?
It was UAB at Charlotte, I think.
Is Trent Dilfer still the coach at UAB?
I don't know. I actually did the whole game without knowing who was the coach.
Dope. All right, you got anything else for us?
Harrison Burton, he's gone now. Who becomes my next favorite?
If you want to just support the Wood Brothers, Josh Berry. Now Harrison Burton got that win. I got to be there for that, so I'll always be thankful. But before that, I was very like, get Harrison Burton the fuck out of here. At least with like, I'm not saying Barry's gonna be great, but I know Barry's at least gonna be aggressive and can give me an advantage in certain spots. Where I was like with Harrison, I don't think he ever gave us that. So Barry, and I always root for Chastain. I'm now Chastain's same age as me, Florida, blue collar, so I kind of like take a liking to him. And the wall ride and punching Noah Gregson's sick. But so I think Chastain is like the perfect fan favorite. We just need to get him more consistent.
I think Chastain sort of matches your demeanor.
And I think that's why I like him. He just seems like a pretty down to earth dude. But who is your guy? Before we bored NASCAR people too much, besides Trash Man.
I think next year I'm going with Larson.
Okay. I thought he'd win it this year. I'm rooting for him in the Indy 500. I'll say that, and I'm rooting for him and Verstappen to both race in the same Indy 500 one year. I was just actually talking to this with my fiance the other day. I was like, "This would be perfect. Open wheel, oval. This is the perfect middle ground for both of them." But thank you, Vince. We'll maybe we'll jump on with you the next time.
All right, thanks.
All right. So got a good amount of people backstage. I think we're going to try and get through everybody here. We have 6 more. And so we have Antonio, Egyptian. I don't know if that's your name or your race. Joe, Raw, Josh, Andy. Who was Raw? There's a hockey. Me and my brothers used to watch up like cursing on TV and YouTube, like in the beginning days of YouTube. Some hockey team won the Stanley Cup, and it's like fucking Raw. So, but if you're not, and Simon just joined. But after Simon, we're gonna close it out after that. Antonio,
yo, Bobby,
I need some fucking tag. I need some tagline to bring people on. Like you're on the call, like some Jim Rome tagline. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, my man?
What do we got?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned this with the other dude that you can't fire Brian Dable and keep Joe Shane or vice versa. Like that shouldn't even be a consideration. You either keep both or you fire them both.
No, I like if they keep Joe Shane and Brian Dable, I'll just say I'll be unhappy.
Yeah.
If Joe Shane convinces John Mara to fire Brian Dable and to keep him, I will lose my mind. It may even end up working out, but I just will lose my mind if they decide to do that. If Joe Shane throws Brian Dable under the bus because of his lack of talent on the roster.
Yeah, agreed. I was curious if Brian Dable does eventually get fired, if he does get fired, how much consideration would you give Mike Vrabel as a potential candidate?
We were just talking about this on the Patreon stream. I wouldn't mind Vrabel. I don't think I'd love it. I don't think it'd be the slam dunk hire. Like I think he'd put together a baseline of having a functional organization, bring back some seriousness to the building, accountability. I think he'd coach up the players fairly well.
Yeah.
My issue is you're so reliant on the coordinators that he hires. Like let's think about this. Mike Vrabel, his last year head coaching, his coordinators were Shane Bowen, and the Giants' tight end coach Tim Kelly was their OC.
Yep.
And it got pretty bad. Like imagine if the Titans never had Derrick Henry. How would we feel about Mike Vrabel then?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind that hire, but I don't view it as a slam. It would remind me a little bit of like Ron Rivera to Washington. In 2020, where I was actually someone who wanted Ron Rivera, but it would remind me of that, where it's like it doesn't seem like a bad hiring, but at the end of the day, it really matters how you getting the coordinators, and you need like a roster that's kind of loaded with talent to hit that ceiling. But I think it raises your floor a bit.
No doubt. So I think we could both agree that corner and quarterback, those are the top 2 needs on this team. I can say we could agree on that.
Yeah.
I was curious, what would the third biggest need be?
To me, I want somebody on that D line, even if it's an edge, right? Like let's say they don't take a quarterback. Abdul Carter from Penn State would love it, or a defensive tackle to go next to Dexter Lawrence. You can argue. Yeah, I really think that's what it is, because I know like we automatically think offensive line, but our starters next year. You have Thomas and Elmanor on the tackles. That's good. Runyon, he's going to start. JMS. It's fine with him being the weak link, and then you got to fill that right guard spot with somebody. I think there's positions weaker, but I view the trend. I take the D line so serious that defensive tackle is to me that, like, if you honestly, like you said, corner.
Yeah.
If it wasn't talking about just need, and you're like, hey, you get to add one great player to the team that's not quarterback, what position do you take? I'm taking edge or D line.
Them going
Because
with
I think they're
Nacho.
so valuable. Like think Jalen Johnson's the best corner in the game. Who's the best defensive tackle right now outside of like Chris Jones? You get to add Jalen Johnson or Chris Jones. I'm adding Chris Jones.
Yeah. Chris Jones is better at his own position than Jalen Johnson.
So who's like a better corner? Okay, Patrick. What about Patrick Surtain? Let's say Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams or Jalen Johnson. I'm taking Quinnen Williams.
Quinn Williams, yeah.
I feel like that's pretty comparable.
That would make an incredible duo with him and Dex in the middle.
Yeah, then I would like that is something that could win the Giants games, having a duo like that.
I wanted them to add D tackle depth since like the off season, like them going with Nacho as the number 2 next to Dex was just insane.
Yeah, we had it for a long time. I mean, BJ Hill was someone who wasn't even getting snaps on this team. Now he's one of the better players on the Bengals. Now the Bengals defense stinks, but like he's a good player in the NFL. Like he couldn't even get on the.
He is a free agent after this year.
Yeah.
Scheduled
Hey, maybe that is the way you go. Because I'd love to bring back BJ Hill. You know, maybe the best third round pick the Giants have had, and since in the last 10 years is BJ Hill.
Oh, for sure. Definitely up there.
Their third round picks have been awful. But Antonio, I'm going to let you go. I got a list of guys I got to get to, but I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, appreciate you, Bobby. One more thing I wanted to say. Really appreciate the film reviews. I love that. That's my favorite type of content.
Thank you. That's my favorite content to do. Now,
Yeah.
when it's a season like this, it's the least viewed, but it's still my favorite thing to do, so I don't mind doing it. So I appreciate you watching. Thanks, Antonio.
Thanks for having me on, Bobby.
All right. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man? How are you? Actually watching you up here from Canada. I love the TPB references. Keep it going, man.
Beautiful.
You're putting us on the map, bro. The biggest question for me is, are you hearing like from any sources or whatever, or do you think that they're going to get rid of one person, or are they just going to keep both of them? Because to me, the biggest disaster that could happen is that they keep Shane and get rid of Dable. I quite frankly don't care what happens to Dable, but you cannot keep Shane after all these monumental blunders like the Jones contract, Thibodeau at 5, Neal at 7, Banks, Hyatt, all the players that are looking better on other teams. Even though I might agree with some of those moves like Barkley, it just looks bad. It's where the laughing stock. This guy cannot pick the next quarterback in what could be a lame duck year, and he's gone.
So I'll say this with like the hear thing. A lot of times we hear some things and then I'll go and talk to reporters about it. Just because one, I'm not looking to break news, and the only time we break news is when it's like this can be basically proven true. Like this will happen in 2 hours. This guy, like when Leonard Williams get traded or something. So, and I also like, we're not journalists, and I don't go through the 2-3 things. So I don't like to do like, oh, I'm hearing this, because that's just not what we're trying. We're trying to do more analysis than that. But I will say this: I do talk to people, and anyone who has given me news before has told me right now they're safe. Now they use the caveat that there's 5 games left and they may lose 12 straight games and things can change. It's changed for John Mayer, but like they've told me right now they're safe. But then I bring that. I went and like talked to some of the reporters. Like, what do you think about that? And I told one today. I was like, everyone tells me that they're safe, and then I hear like hints from some of you guys that like Dable could have been fired on Thanksgiving if it was like an embarrassing loss. And he's like, that could be true. Now I trust the reporters less than the people that talk to me by a wide margin. But right now, I think John Mayer in his head wants them both back. I don't know how John Mayer is going to feel if they lose 5 more games and end up losing 12 straight. Like, I don't even think people realize how good just one win would do them right now. Like, think about like you having to go to work every day, and it's just been shitty for 12 straight weeks. There's never been a good day of work. I've never been a comfortable day in the building. And then you finish it off with Saquon Barkley, breaking the rushing record versus the Phil in your last game of the year. Like if just 1 week off from everything sucking, I feel like would do wonders for like the pressure everyone's feeling in that building. But so right now I think they're safe. But if the season ended today, but the season doesn't end today.
So in the event that they do pick the quarterback that they want, and next year is a complete disaster, whether or not it's because of that quarterback's fault, it's not a good year, and then they're gone. Now a new regime comes in, they're stuck with this QB, and it's like we're repeating the same cycle all over again. Like what are you seeing?
Well,
What do you
hopefully
see
they
happening?
wouldn't end up stuck with the quarterback. That's the one thing where like we don't have to stay with the quarterback for 6 years like we did with Daniel Jones. I mean, no QB had that little success in that amount of time with a team since the new rookie contracts. The only guy like there hasn't been. I mean, there's been no quarterback who's ever had his 5th-year option declined and then re-signed to that team. There's been guys in the past, but that was before the contract straight. Like Alex Smith, he was awful for 6 years, and then his 7th year, he got good with Jim Harbaugh. So it'd be like, in that hypothetical situation, it's like, say they draft Cam Ward, he sucks the first year, they fire Joe Shane and Brian Dable, they give that Cam Ward another year, he's not good, then the GM, the new GM hires, drafts a quarterback in that second year whenever sees fit, or gets a bridge the next year. Or even if they think Cam Ward's bad enough and they're in the spot, you do what the Cardinals did and draft Kyler when you took Josh Rosen. Okay. Which is easy, which is harder said than done, though. Here's my worry with that, because that sounds good. Let's say they draft Cam Ward and he doesn't just flat out suck, but it doesn't look good. You know who has the best, and they fire Joe Shane. You know who has like the best chance of like making John Mayer want to hire them? The GMs who's like, we can build around this guy. Like we get the right coaching. That's who you get. Like my whole thing with like the Saquon draft. People are like, oh, John Mayer told Dave Gettleman that they needed to build around Eli and draft Saquon. No, but guess which GM went into them and talked about like, we still got some time with Eli left. Let's draft Saquon. Dave Gettleman. That made John Mayer happy. He hires Dave Gettleman. So that's my worry. Is a lot of situations people run through of like the positive side sound good in theory, in practice they don't work out.
That's why it's just such a perfect clean slate moment right now. When you get a GM with a prime pick, you can start this franchise from the beginning with a QB that you want, whatever coach you want. Like it just seems like this is such a good opportunity to start fresh, and I don't want to squander it. And who's to say what pick you're going to have next year if it doesn't go well? Like it's just too much. But I'm just rambling now. I'm not really asking anything. So thank you again for your time, and take care.
What's up, Bobby? First of all, I think you might be muted.
Oh my God, I'm fucking muted. I kicked him off mute. Sports with Wise. I'll just repeat. Can you send the link again? No, we have Joe now, Josh, Andy, and Simon. Those will be the last ones, and then we'll go. But thank you for letting me know, because I've never. So I used to do all 22 streams before I did like just recorded breakdowns in 2020. So I would literally go through every play of offense and then defense, and I have to share my screen. And then one time I forgot to press share my screen, and I was breaking down film for 45 minutes while the only thing on the screen is my face. And I wasn't looking at the chat either. But what's going on, dude?
Nothing much. First of all, big fan. Spotify Wrapped yesterday. You guys at #1. So
appreciate that. I love getting those every year. Yeah. I wish Apple and YouTube did them, because Spotify is third as far as like where our listenership and viewership comes from. I wish YouTube and Apple would do it, but it's cool. It's cool. I always enjoy seeing those.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so first one's kind of a hypothetical, and it's more of like a Thanksgiving type debate. It's why it's at the top of my mind. I don't even know if it's possible contractually, whatever. If you fire Dable and you fire Shane, you have a prime pick, 1, 2, 3, whatever it ends up being. Would you draft Shadur and hire Dion?
No, I wouldn't hire Dion.
Why not?
I don't think that works in the NFL. Maybe I'm being old school and stuck up in my ways, but tell me, Dion in college has the advantage of like players want to go play for him. What is he like? Tell me what his advantage is as an NFL head coach.
Yeah, well, honestly, one of the reasons why that came to my mind was because listening to you, I know you talk about.
And what if Shador sucks?
Yeah, well, that's another thing too. You can't really bench him. There's like nepotism going on. Sure, that's why it's like a hypothetical Thanksgiving type question, not really a serious thing. But I know what
it's not the worst thing in the world. But what I come down to with Dion is like, tell me the big advantage he gives you as an NFL head coach. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down a lot. Like you talk to Justin a lot about. We need a take no shit type of coach. Brian Dable, that's a lot of shit slide. Dion wouldn't be that way.
That's fair.
I think he would recreate a lot of things. I think, maybe he doesn't give you the advantage, but I mean, I guess why would you hire a coach if he doesn't give you an NFL advantage, right? But I was thinking more lines of like, this needs a culture shock beyond measure. We're seeing, like you said, Malik Neighbors, he's played 7 games in the NFL and he's talking shit about, the team and things like that, where it's like, you can't really, there is a line that needs to be drawn that like,
what changes the culture though is not, you don't need I don't think you need a giant culture shock. I think you need a difference of what you're doing, but it's winning and good players that hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And the Giants don't win, and I think the Giants have some good players. I don't think they have that second level of players that are fucking dogs that hold each other accountable. Right? And I've taught we get the privilege of talking to some of those former Giants, and I hate pulling up the glory days and stuff, but it's like it was a team of fucking full of grown men, right? Like the backups were grown men who took their shit serious and they held each other accountable. Like you had a defensive end room of Justin Tuck, OC, JPP, Dave Tollison's like the fourth guy in there. And like if you didn't run to the ball on the backside in practice, they would be held to pay. Like they held each other accountable. They were not perfect cookie cutter leaders, but they held each other accountable. And even though they may have said some dumb shit and did some dumb shit, they held each other accountable. And you had that, culture that a guy like Tom Coughlin brought. But at the end of the day, if you're losing, it's hard to keep any culture if you're losing, right? Like if you're I think the let shit slide players control everything. I don't ever do any punishment ends up hurting you in the end. A la Doug Peterson with Philly. So I do think you need some of that, right? I don't think you need to be over the top, but I think you need some of that. But at the end of the day, you need players who are good players. Like Kayvon the other day saying, I know everyone got mad at him because Kayvon hasn't played that well. It was like, well, like if you make plays, you get to talk. If you don't, he's right. People don't like that, but it's right. The issue is the Giants don't have guys who are making plays who are there to lead and hold each other accountable. And unfortunately, I think their best players are a little soft-spoken. Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Bobby Okereke hasn't played that well this year. I think are a little more soft-spoken. I think Burns is out there, but also he's brand new to the team. So I think that's kind of where it's at though.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Just like I said, just a hypothetical type thing there. All right, last one, then I'll let you go. Taking quarterback out of the equation because that's like the obvious pick of what the Giants are most likely going to do. And taking running back out of the equation because God forbid we drafted a running back in the top 3 again. Is there a position that you would be mad about that the Giants drafted besides running back and quarterback, taking those guys out?
Looking at the players, I would like, edge like an Abdul Carter. Is there a position?
Because I feel like the team needs everything that I feel like there's no position that I would be upset over. Left tackle, I guess.
Linebacker, maybe. Yeah,
Okay.
not even left tackle because you could just put him at right tackle.
Yeah.
Linebacker one because linebacker's so hard to. It just seems like you have a hard time translating into the NFL. I'm trying to think of like the first rounders who have just done it really well. I think Roquan's one, but you've had a lot of Isaiah Simmons. Remember at one point he was viewed as like the next, NFL freak,
Yeah.
and he can't even play on this shitty team. So probably linebacker, and it's not solely positional value. It's just it's hard to get that right in the first round for some reason because it's a mental game, and people. It's the same way with safeties, where people is like, oh well, this Kyle Hamilton doesn't run this or Brian. It's like okay, but this fucking Nick Cross guy runs a 4.3. He doesn't know how to read the offense. He doesn't know what's going on. So he's so fast while he just sits in center field or guesses the wrong way. But linebacker. But if you I want D-line or edge if we're not going quarterback. Like I want to have a real deal pass rush.
So not a Travis Hunter guy.
No, don't get me wrong. I'd love Travis Hunter. Like,
Okay.
and I am someone who's going to give him a handful of offensive snaps. The same way Dion got that in the NFL, and probably more than what Dion got. But so yeah, corner I would. Abdul Carter from Penn State. Like watching that guy, I'm like, I think this guy can be really fucking nice.
Cool.
But
all right, Bobby, appreciate it. Thanks
appreciate
so much.
you.
All right, keep it up.
We got 3 more. We got Josh, Andy, and Simon. Josh, welcome to the show. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. So I don't want to beat a dead horse. I mean, everybody seems to want to talk about Shane and Dable, right? Like, will they, won't they be gone? I mean, I think that's what everybody's thinking about. But I mean, with each week too, we're getting a little bit closer to wanting it a little bit more. I think I wanted them to kind of stay, but we're getting closer and closer to it, I think, each passing week. But there was good, right? I mean, coach of the year, playoffs. Shane has rebuilt the offensive line, no depth, but draft. He's hanging his hat on this draft, which has been good. So with that being said, how much faith do you have? Say they're cooked, say they're gone. How much faith do you have in Mara going back to the well there? I mean, is he gonna look back and be more conservative in this next hire? Go with somebody, something he's more comfortable with? Is he gonna bring an adult like Pat Shurmur in? Like what?
Yeah, looking back at it with the Joe Shane and Brian Dable, right? I go back and I'm like, okay, I understand. I hope he goes into it with the same thinking that he did in the last GM and head coaching cycle, and hope they can evaluate talent better. Or at least the GM can evaluate talent better. So do I trust that? No, I don't trust John Mayer at all. Like, it still drives me nuts that we have the youngest, whatever Tim McDonald's title is. Like, he's the youngest at his position in the NFL. And Monty, who is on Twitter, does his show, He's a Giant. He's like, all right, so either we have like the fucking boy genius or it's gross nepotism. Let's figure out which one is it, right? Why can everyone be fired but him? Why can't we have someone who's bringing us an advantage at that spot? And Chris Mayer's not as involved as he used to be, so I'm not hung up on that. But like Tim McDonald he's the nephew, or sorry, the son-in-law of the owner on the team. Like, right, that's crazy to think about, that he's like, when you see them on scouting trips and stuff, it's like Joe Shane, Brandon Brown, Tim McDonald. Like, he's always there. How do you even how does Joe Shane and Brandon, like, they can't talk about certain things around him because they don't know what he's going to report back to the owner,
So I mean, we've talked about that, though. We've talked about the overhauling of things, but how much can they still overhaul with that much insider, nepotism still existing, right? Yeah, I mean, it does.
I think you just need a GM who's better at evaluating talent. I don't think there's some things you look back at Shane decision-wise, and like, that looks bad, or like it looks bad in hindsight, or it's bad process. But I think it's just, if he was better at evaluating talent, and actually, let me say this. My biggest issue with Joe Shane, if you look at the first year process-wise, is he drafts for need. Like, there's no denying it. It got shown on Hard Knocks. I do a draft day speech every year in 2022 because they had all those picks. And this was me more like venting, because I'd be like, hey, I understand we have all these needs. We can't go into this draft thinking we're going to fill all. Because all you're going to do is you're going to put together a bad safety in the 6th round pick. Just take the guys that you think are the best chance to be good players, because you're not going to fill these holes with bad players. Well, he went into that draft being like, I got to fill all these holes, and talked about the reason he traded down is because he needed players on the roster to fill positions. And how is that helping us now? How is Dane Belton helping us now? How is Marcus McKeithen helping us now? How are those guys helping us now? And they're, quote unquote, fill a hole. They've created a hole because they're not good players. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at. I'm kind of rambling, but to me, it's about talent evaluation, right? Like,
you're right.
You look at some GMs, like, are they even a great GM, or are they good at evaluating talent? Like, it's as simplistic as, like, everyone talks about process. I think football GMing is somewhat simplistic to, like, how good are you at identifying the good players in the draft? Like, I really think that is the most important part of the job. It's the hardest thing to judge for a candidate, a GM, because you don't know what they've picked, right? Like,
Yeah.
Joe Shane sound great on paper, but you really have no idea what he's responsible for draft-wise with the Bills. Because in the day, Brandon Beane's the one who owns those draft picks. You know, we
Right.
talk about their scouts and stuff, but at the end of the day, Brandon Beane's not handing in the card with any player that he doesn't like at that spot. So I just think it's about getting the right talent evaluator and making sure he's not a moron who can't run an organization.
I mean, that as far as Shane goes, I kind of want to give him a pass on Kayvon and Neal, because at one point I think everybody saw them both as potential top picks. But as far as restocking the offensive line and defensive line, that is massive hole. I mean, at least Jerry Reese got the D line restocked regularly.
Yeah. And I also think something that's benefiting Joe Shane is how bad Gettleman was, and how, like, think about how bad Gettleman was. The end years of Reese were like kind of significantly worse. Like, I think we forget how bad the end of Reese was because he won 2 Super Bowls with them. So yeah, it's so with your main question being like, do you trust John Mara? No, I don't trust John Mara, and I that's where it's. I was actually talking with somebody the other day, and he's like, I just don't know if we're ever going to get back to that glory land with this ownership group. And now some of this is luck. Get the right GM, which can be a little bit of a luck business, and then there you go. But
I mean, sorry, not to keep rambling on, but say we stick with Shane and Dable, get a Shadur Cam, then they get 2 more years. You know, you don't want to lame duck them. Or you clean house and trust John Mara to get somebody in there to make the pick. Do you prefer the latter? Do you prefer just clean it and go from there? Or
yeah, because I don't trust Joe Shane and Brian. I think they're more worried about their job security than doing what they think is the actual. Like, let me ask. Like I talked about earlier, there's 2 things. Let's say Saquon was a free agent this year. Would he go against John Mara and do that decision because he wants to do what John Mara wants? And the other thing is, he didn't think J.J. McCarthy was worth the 6th overall pick in last year's draft. Let's say he was the best available quarterback according to Joe Shane's assessment in this year's draft. Would he take him? And if the answer is yes, then I want Joe Shane gone, because now we're trying to save our job and not trying to do what we think is the right thing. Even if he ends up being wrong in those decisions, I want a GM who's making decisions because he thinks he's doing the right thing and not because he's trying to make the owner happy. I mean, that's how you got Gettleman in the first place, because he was the interview that made the owner most happy. That's why he did, you know, ask to fire Pat Shurmur, because he wanted to save his job from the owner. And so once you go in the job security mode, or, you know, having that spending spree in year 3, you know, knowing that they need it was do or die for them in year 4. So,
but does that environment of, you know, not necessarily keep saying the word nepotism, but the family, does that environment make you kind of look out for yourself more than being a free flyer as a GM? You know what I mean? Like, you kind of got to look over your back a bit.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is if you get a new GM and he's actually good and he gets good talent evaluation, you don't give a shit about that, because you're doing a good job and you're not worried about what he says. Because I mean, you look at Joe Shane the way he was on Hard Knocks, like, he was confident, right, in his decisions. He's like, I don't care. He's like, this is what I think is the right thing. So when you have that confidence, you're there. When, like, if you, Joe Shane, I think, is GMing differently this year than he was his first year, and it's not because of more experience. I think it's because of job security. But Josh, I got to let you go. I got to get to these last 2.
Yeah, man. Sorry to take up all your time. Thank you.
You're good. See ya. And then Thomas, I see you in the backstage. We're only going to do 2 more, so I don't want to have you sitting back there, because we're only going to hit 2 more. Andy, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Bobby? How are you? Love what you
Good.
guys
How we
do.
doing?
Good. Happy to hear that Justin's back, like Lazarus from the dead.
Yeah, he'll be on the show tomorrow, so he's not dead.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, this might be kind of a random question. It's not really totally related to the future of the Giants, but I've always been curious on your take, or people's takes, on how Malik Neighbors compares as a prospect to Odell. Like, specifically, who do you think is more talented, or where are they similar? Where are they different?
I wasn't this invested when Odell was drafted. Like, I watched some highlights before the draft and stuff, and But I'll compare their rookie years, and this is not a slight to Malik Neighbors. Odell was on pace for to be one of the best wide receivers of all time that wasn't named like Jerry Rice or Randy Moss. Like his rookie, I don't know if we'll ever get a rookie year that was better. I think Justin Jefferson ended up with more yards, but we forget Odell missed 4 games to start that. Like he was truly on just an unreal pace. So I don't think Neighbors' rookie year compares at all. And it's not just quarterback. It's Odell was fucking nuts. And I definitely have some negative feelings towards Odell with the way shit ended and stuff. But one thing is for sure is that he was a game-changing Hall of Fame level player for those first 4 or 5 years or whatever. And then it just fell off with injuries. And then you started to have some of the bullshit that went along with it.
Yeah. So he's probably more explosive of a player than Malik. I mean, we haven't seen Malik's full potential. He hasn't had those big plays, maybe because of the quarterback and the offense, but Odell would be more explosive anyway.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, well, Malik Neighbors isn't explosive. It's just Odell was on a different level. Like, can Malik Neighbors take a slant to the house? Yes, we will see that eventually. But Odell did it consistently. You know what I mean? Like it was just consistent of what he did. I was at that Monday Night Dolphins game in Miami, and it's just yep, you throw him a post over the middle, he splits both defenders, he's in the touchdown, 80 yards. So I just think he was on such a different level that it's hard to compare any player to him because it's you sound like you're disrespecting a Malik Neighbors or something, but it's just no. Odell was literally on record pace, to start his career.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you think he fell off so hard when he went to the Browns? Do you think his practice habits weren't good? Like he didn't work that hard? He was going off talent, or really just the injuries took
starting
it away?
To get banged up a little bit. He did have that first 1,000. He had 1,000 yards that first year, but he was starting to get banged up a little bit. Also, people don't want to admit it. He was a pain in the ass to deal with, and he didn't want to be in Cleveland. He said it without saying it with his comments, they sent me here to die. It's well, supposedly they're an up and coming team. They were in the middle of games. He was talking, telling the Cardinals, players, come get trade for me or whatever, So he was a pain in the ass to deal with. Then you have the whole, then he gets injured the second year. And then you have the Baker, the Baker blow up and all that shit. And they basically told him just leave, get out of here. And then, but you saw in the Rams, he wasn't the same player he was, but he was still a difference-making player. And then I think that injury in the Super Bowl just kind of did him in. That was the end of it. Because he was even on the Ravens last year, he wasn't awful, but it's this is just nowhere near a wide receiver one in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. His peak was crazy. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but maybe real quick, I saw this in the comments too, and I've been curious. Do you think that Mara more or less forced Dable and Schoen to continue with Jones? Their hands were sort of tied?
No, but here's what I do think is that he won't judge them too much on it because they agreed with the decision, right? Like the last guy that was on, he talked about Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau, and it's human nature. I wanted Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau I thought was the best available. And I wanted Akim Ekwonu over Evan Neal, but that doesn't sound like such a great win here because Ekwonu hasn't been very good. I wish Sauce would have just been on the board because I really like Sauce, even though he's had a down year. But it's I don't, in my heart, I don't hold that as much against them as I do the Deontay Banks stuff because I liked Neal and Thibodeau, where I didn't like Banks that much. So it's just human nature. It's well, I agreed with the, John Mayer, I agreed with the Daniel Jones signing. So I understand why they did it because I agreed with it for all the same reasons. But the reality is he did not force them. That is for a fact. He did not force them. And then if they felt strongly enough, the same way they did with Saquon this last offseason, they could have decided to let him walk. And you also could have went about it different ways. It's not just giving him a contract. You bid against yourself. You should have let him hit free agency. I'm all right, see what team's going to pay you more than $36 million per year. Come on, go find that team out there that's going to give you more than $36 million per year, where you could reset the middle tier of quarterback contract cap percentage wise. If they really want to do a power move, they would have franchise tagged Saquon Barkley well before the tag deadline and said, all right, now let's get a deal done because we're not going above this number, and I don't think you're going to get it anywhere else. So It's not even
Yeah.
just re-signing Daniel Jones. It's the fact that they gave him again. Like we broke it down on that day. It's like they set a new standard for middle tier quarterbacks with Daniel Jones, who was arguably lesser than the other middle tier quarterbacks who got contracts cap percentage. My notes from that day were crazy. It's so many numbers and like percentage points and stuff. But like he set a new standard by a couple percentage points for the middle tier quarterbacks, and they're the ones who did that by giving him that contract.
Yeah, I agree. They should have let him test the market and seen what he would have gotten.
All right, Andy, I'm going to let you roll, and then we're going to bring on Simon, and then we're going to head out. Appreciate you, man.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, Simon.
What's up, Bobby?
Last call. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. How about you? Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's going on, dude?
Doing good. Just want to say I've been watching you guys since like before we drafted Daniel Jones. I don't know if that's a
Before
long
we
time or
drafted
not.
Daniel Jones?
Yeah,
You're one of our first like 150 listeners, dude. I appreciate
I might be.
that.
I'm not sure. I used to watch.
There's not might be. If you listen to us any before Daniel Jones, you're one of our first 150 listeners.
Yeah, I think once we drafted Jones, I started getting really interested. I mean, I've always been a Giants fan, like diehard since I was a kid, but I started really getting into it at that point, and I was like, interested to see what would happen, but obviously it didn't end well. So,
Do you have any of like the old stickers? Did I send you like one of those shitty stickers that like rectangle and had the old logo on it? Because I remember I sent that to like
that
the first
one. I don't know. I don't even notice. What's your new logo now? Like, is it the same?
It's the same logo. It's just more well done. The other one was a little.
I think I
kinda
might.
quickly
I might have
missed.
noticed it. Yeah. I mean,
But,
I know you guys have a lot of subscribers now compared to before.
Yeah, we had we didn't have YouTube at that point. The podcast and social media, but
It's
I
awesome. to see you
appreciate
guys-
hearing that, dude.
Yeah, of course. So I wrote down a bunch of questions because I know I'm gonna forget all of them. But first one I was gonna say. So, do you feel like this is something I've been thinking about a lot? Do you feel like Shane is more of like a financial manager rather than an actual like good analyst? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think he's not actually like?
I
don't
think
know if
he's a
you understand my
smart
question.
guy who
Yeah.
hasn't drafted well.
Yeah, I feel like
I think we sometimes overcomplicate it,
Uh-huh.
and it's like his background is in scouting. He started as a scout, right? It's not like the Vikings bring in Quezzy, who like doesn't have much of a scouting background or whatever. I just think he's drafted for need, and he hasn't been very good at drafting as well. And I think that's the main issue, right? We can talk about individual decisions that he made that ended up not working out, whether you were on the Saquon side or Xavier McKinney and the trade for Brian Burns. Like, our stuff is well documented on that. But I think at the end of the day, if he had drafted better, we'd be talking about him as some great GM. I think if Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, Deontay Banks, JMS are hits, and Jalen Hyatt's a above average player, and Josh Azuda's a starting guard, we're talking about this guy's a great GM. Instead, those guys didn't work out, and he's looked at as a bad GM.
Like, do you feel like we kind of screwed them up from the beginning? We kind of set them up, like, because I mean, I feel like they looked good in the beginning when we first got all these players that you're talking about. Kayvon, I mean, Jalen Hyatt, I guess he showed some flashes, but like a lot of these players were good, in the beginning, and then now they like kind of fell off. Like, and then this past draft, I mean, we drafted pretty good. Like, this draft has kind of like, I guess, given him defense.
Let me interrupt you with that, because how were they different in the early, or did we judge them on a rookie curve, right?
I mean, that might be, yeah. And
then that's where I stop people from using this most recent draft class as the number one reason why. It can be a reason why you like them, and hey, like in the moment, I feel better about this draft class than I did the previous two.
Yeah.
But right now, people like Tyler Nubin. If Tyler Nubin is the exact same player 1 year from now, we're talking about why doesn't this guy ever get a pass breakup and he's never gotten an interception, right? We don't give a shit about tackles for a safety. If Drew Phillips is the same player 1 year from now, he's a good run defender. He's made some good plays. We're talking about how he misses open field tackles, and can't make a play down the field. Now Neighbors is good. Tracy's is good. Theo, a year from now, if he's putting together a 400-yard season, we're like, this is not the answer. So I think we judge rookies on a rookie curve, which we should, but we celebrate them as slam dunks when they're to be decided. Neighbors and Tracy, good picks. Good picks in my mind. I'm not going to be bashful about that.
Yeah,
The other 4, I need to see more before I celebrate them quite yet.
Yeah, and I mean, coaches don't plan for.
I lost you. Are you muted? There you go. You're good now.
No, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying, I feel like, when they're rookies, they don't have film on them and they don't plan for them as much. I mean, Neighbors right now, he's kind of going, how is he going to be next year? You know what I'm saying? Like in the beginning, first half of the season, he was going crazy. And now, I mean, our offense just sucks in general because nobody's, you know what I'm saying? But,
I think Neighbors is going to be great. I think with better quarterback play, you might get some more focus on him. He'll get a little more focus where there has been times where there's been focus laps on him. Like I like to use this play as an example, and I think Carl Banks called it out too. Who like whenever he's calling out something, it's something that's bothering them in the building. The Daniel Jones interception against the Panthers, where he throws it in the flat to Tyrone Tracy and a flow behind him on 3rd down.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about, oh look, Malik Neighbors is open. Malik Neighbors is open after the pass rusher would have already sacked Daniel Jones, but Malik Neighbors did see that was a 0 blitz. He wasn't focused enough, and it took forever to get into his break. And Daniel Jones couldn't throw there. Now, maybe Daniel Jones doesn't throw there in the first place, but with the way Malik Neighbors ran that route, because there was no attention to detail, he couldn't throw the ball to him, right? So you couldn't get what could have been a touchdown there. But I think when you're playing better and you're more focused and you have a quarterback who's holding you accountable and a coaching staff, that you won't see that thing. So I have no worries about Neighbors. I think Neighbors is going to be a 1,000-yard guy every single year.
Yeah, I feel like the players just aren't really in sync. I mean, I feel like, part of it is Jones is not throwing it early enough. Before he wasn't throwing it early enough so that once he turns around, he can catch it. And then, I mean, like you said, also people I feel like are judging.
He
Jones
missed some on a bunch of explosives as well, too,
Yeah. Next question I have. So I feel like we need to, if we draft a quarterback, I don't know how I feel about this class. I'm not so sure about it, but I mean, if we draft a quarterback, I think leaving him on an island by himself and letting him start is just a terrible idea. I think, do you think we need to get a vet and have him sit behind him 6 games or a full season? How do you feel about that?
I would get a vet. Justin Fields is the one that sounds the nicest to me because it's like he's not going to be great, but you can do some things with him because of his athleticism and he's got a good arm. And you saw Pittsburgh they didn't have a good offense, they had a bad offense, but they did some stuff with him. And it's not a great offensive situation in Pittsburgh either. But I also have learned if the guy shows you he's ready, do it. But don't plan don't name him the starter the day after the draft type of thing. Have a plan that if he's not ready, give him the opportunity. Think about what Drake made this year. But when they decided to make him the starter, people oh my God, they're gonna ruin him. And does he look ruined? No, he looks good. And I was talking with Chris Rose, who we do the Football Today show, was telling a story like Kurt Warner, and he's talking about Eli, and he's like, man, some guys, it's just like they either have the mental toughness for it or they don't. And Eli, we know how bad his rookie year was, but he was mentally tough to overcome that. So I think at the end of the day, quarterbacks either are it or they're not. Now, situation can decide how high their ceiling is or how high their floor is, but I don't think there's very many quarterbacks in the NFL who it's like if they're in a different situation, they'd be a great quarterback. You might get some better production in certain years, but I don't think I don't tell me what quarterback we look back at over the last 10 years. It's like if he was just in a better situation, he'd be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now there is some examples like Jared Goff, right? Jared Goff in other situations is, someone who wouldn't have lasted in the NFL. And some guys do get better over time, like a Geno Smith. But if we're talking about the top 5 QBs in the NFL, I don't think it makes too much of a difference for. But overall, yes, I lean. Let these guys sit and learn. Unless they're just prying the door open because of how good they are. I agree with you.
Another example is Baker Mayfield. I mean, he was what was it his second year that they did really good where they're in the playoffs, or was it? I don't remember which year.
His first year, he came in and he played fairly well. After Tyrod started that year, and Tyrod was playing really bad. The second year is where they fell off with Freddie Kitchens and Odell, and then the third year with Stefanski is the year they went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then the fourth year he got banged up and played bad and stuff, and then they end up letting him go to Carolina. So yeah, for like the Bakers and stuff like that, I think it matters. But if we're talking about like guys who are going to be like the Justin Herberts, the Lamars of the world, I don't think it brings. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. But overall, I agree with you. I lean.
Mhm.
We don't need to rush this. This is our biggest investment. Let's make sure we protect it and take care of it instead of forcing it.
Yeah, and also to, I guess, go to the next topic, offensive line. I feel like nobody's talking about that enough. Like in terms of how are we going to improve it to next year? I mean, offensive line looked really good at the beginning of the season, and now it's kind of dropped off. I mean, a huge part was when Andrew Thomas, got injured. It was kind of like a death sentence,
Yep.
for the whole offensive line. But yeah,
Can I say this though? Even as bad as the offensive line has been this year since Andrew Thomas got injured, I don't think it's anywhere close to as bad as it was in the first half of last. I think we'll never see something like what we saw in the first half of last season, or the first 6-7 games or whatever it was.
that was
A lot of it has to do with health. Right now, I think you need to get a swing tackle. I think that needs to be valued more. But at the end of the day, a swing tackle is not going to be anywhere near the level of player that Andrew Thomas is, and I don't think they'll be close to what Jermaine Eleanor is. But if you're healthy, you have your tackles. Interior, it's draft free agency, right? Like I don't pick positions, I pick players, but I would hope that one of those players ends up being a good guard in the draft. Free agency. If their biggest contract this all season is a guard, fine by me, right? But I feel like they're not. Runyon's going to be here. He's an average to an above average starter. JMS, if he ends up being your weakest link, I'm okay with that for one more year. And then even if let's say they draft a guard in the 3rd round too, still re-sign a Greg Van Roten-like player, so he's not forced to play. I think guards also are a position that benefit from sitting early on too. So it's about drafting that position and taking depth serious. I think that's another big issue with Joe Shane. Is I don't think he's ever taken depth over that super serious. I think he values filling starting roles much more than like in reality. Let me rephrase this, because if you put together this scenario, he would take the right choice. But in his mind, if he's looking at a draft like let's say Johnny Mathis was on the board last year, or what and then Kamari Lassiter, the corner from the Houston, right? If he thought Johnny Mathis was a much better player, he'd still take Kamari Lassiter because of how much he viewed cornerback as a need in that 2nd round. So I feel like that's kind of the way Shane is. But you got anything else, Simon, before we roll?
Not really. I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I wrote like a few questions about defense, but I know it's like we're like overtime anyway. So
yeah, I want to watch this Thursday night football game. But I appreciate you jumping on. Appreciate your support from the beginning. So yeah, we'll definitely do this again. There were some people who wanted to join, didn't get to do it. Thank you, Simon. So I don't know if we're going to do this all the time. Every time I do a live stream, like we need to do this more, but we get busy. But would like to do it a little more as we go in the future. Maybe that's something Justin will do a little bit of. So, but we also don't want to oversaturate ourselves with content. So, here's what I'm going to say. I'm pissed off. None of you motherfuckers came on and challenged me about Darius Slayton. I want someone to come on and challenge me about Darius Slayton, and no one does it. I think it's my most like polarizing take is like re-sign Darius Slayton. Anytime we talk about it, people are like, "Oh, you love him." Blah blah blah. All right, I want to debate Darius Slayton. If there's one thing I don't really like sports debates. I want to debate anybody about Darius Slayton, but appreciate it. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you. Check out the preview pod, which we're not actually previewing the game. It's that time of year, unfortunately. But we'll see you on Friday. Check it out. Until then, let's go big. Yeah, and if you didn't get on, because again, there was like a handful of people. Sorry about that. Like I see Michael. There's somebody else, a couple other people. We'll try and do this again. Not sure we're gonna do it. We'll try and do it again. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy Lions Packers, and let's go Big Blue.